When Steel talks, everybody listens.
When Steve Talks is chatting with Mrs. Merle Albino DeCoteau, one of the people in Trinidad and Tobago who knew Clive Bradley, the late master musician, and Steve had arranger, not only in his latter years, but indeed from his early years when he was a teacher, an academic at Fatima College in Port of Spain in Trinidad, and in his days when he made music for what we would term big bands. And we welcome Mrs. Merle Albino DeCoteau to the audience of When Steel Talks. It's good to have you here to share your knowledge and your memories of Clive Bradley in his earlier years with the Global Pan community.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you. Well, like you say, reminiscing, because Clive Bradley was not just a musician. He was a genius, a very talented and also a very professional person. In the very early 60s, well, he was the teacher by day and the musician by night. In the day, well, like I said, he started teaching and then was sent to the Teachers Training College, where he did his exams at the end of this 2-year program. And after he graduated with such good distinction, he was asked to teach once more, to become a teacher ready at the training college on staff. And there he was teaching math. He was a great mathematician. The kind of mathematical mind he had, this is why he was so analytical, not only with the math, but also with his music. Because his mind worked so well that he was able to analyze things. Now, analyze in the sense that when he studied music, he went into such detail. And he's saying so analytical was Bradley's mind that he did everything in depth, that he studied the ancient and modern hymnals to see the kinds of harmonies that were used. So my brother always said, and my brother Organ Albino played with him at the penthouse. Then my brother liked to say that Troy and he had a stable of pianists, because many of them were playing there with Troy. They alternated in playing. And while my brother was quite a fluent pianist, he said one had to sit up and listen to the kind of harmony that Bradley used. It's only afterwards you realize that Clive studied ancient and modern hymnals.
Right.
So the kinds of harmonies that were used. Another thing I also got one borrowed from him is a magazine called Keyboard that he used to send for in America. And he looked and really studied all the works of the masters. But not only did he study them, but in analyzing them, he knew how to use them. But again, I quote my brother saying, the voicing that Clive used was really something that blew his mind in those days. And I'm talking about in the 1960s. At that time, my brother said he was using just social harmony. He, my brother, always. But he was saying, he had to ask Clive, what are you doing? And he was showing how he was using extended chords right then, you know. And so not just using a C, E, G, but extending it beyond that. So he was incorporating 2 chords in the one harmonic line that he was using. He would put C, E, G, B, D, F sharp, so that you would be getting a D, and he would also be using a D sharp, which we would call cross rhythms, cross relations, sorry, not cross rhythm, but cross relations. And you would say, but how could you put a D with a D sharp? But where Clive would put a D down at the bottom, and he would put a D sharp up on the top, so that it did not sound dissonant at all. It was very interesting. And this is what made him do such good work with a steel band.
And he was doing this way back in the 60s.
Yes. he was doing that kind of harmony in the 60s. He was not yet arranging for steel bands in the 60s, but he was using that with the guitar and also with the piano. So it came naturally when he started arranging for the steel band to be able to employ that kind of harmony structure in his arrangements. Another thing, he just was not just interested in just playing anything. When I say simple melodies, because I remember once I did a workshop with Clive, we were both teaching arranging to steel bandsmen up at the University of the Creative Arts Center. This was a class that was done by the Ministry of Culture. And we were doing this arranging course. And Clive asked me to play blues because that fascinated him, the kind of harmony that was used, you know. But I go back to Clive, like I said, even before he started arranging for the steel band. He was that teacher. I taught at the Catholic Women's Training College. While I taught music, Clive taught mathematics, even to the women at the Catholic Training College. He was sought after as a mathematics teacher. And like I said, he taught at Fatima College, and one will not realize that when we talk about Clive at Fatima College in those days, he would begin his Christian white shirt, a real professional master.
How old was he about in that point, Mrs. Albino DeCoteau?
He must have been, in that time, he might have been in his 30s.
Okay.
He would have been in his 30s again.
So, in his 30s, a sought after mathematician. Excellent. Go ahead.
Yes. And, like I said, doing so very well in his teaching, and then when he went into the training college, getting distinctions in his subject, he was asked to come back and work on the staff where he was teaching teachers how to teach and teaching them mathematics. There are totally different methods of teaching mathematics. He made everything look so simple, again because of his analytical mind.
All right. Anything you would like to share further?
Well, this is a little interesting thing because both my brother and Clive, as I told you, they played at Kent House. But what is also interesting is that they both had girlfriends. My sister was a nurse at the Portland General Hospital, and they both had girlfriends and had as nurses training at the hostel. And there was also a piano in the hostel there, and they were both take turns at playing at the hostel, and they attracted a lot of people coming to hear them sing, you know, at the Portland General Hospital.
Okay. Yeah, indeed. I mean,
sad but true, Clive married a nurse. And unfortunately, she was killed in New York.
okay.
And it had a very devastating effect on him.
And do you think, as some have said, that his life experiences impacted on his music thereafter, that he was able to pour some of his feelings, his disenchantment, maybe his passion into what he arranged?
It's possible. This is quite possible. In those days, what was very popular were combos, small bands, small orchestras, and he also had the combo. Yes, like that we had that. So, combo bands.
So, what are your experiences with him? And, I mean, you were an adjudicator at different times when his arrangements were in the spotlight in panoramas, both in New York and also in Trinidad and Tobago. Talk about that a bit.
Okay, one always had to sit up and listen whenever he did any arrangements. Not that you would not be listening to everyone, But he did so many different things. He would take a motif and he would have it elongated. He would have it, he would invert it. He would do so many things with the same motif. I remember when he did Rebecca. And Rebecca is, I know Rebecca from small. So the motif was the tang, the tang, the tang, tang. But he took it and he did the tang, the tang, the tang, the tang, the tang, tang, the tang. And I said to him, he said, when you make a mistake and it's sweet, when you do something nice, you do it twice.
So when you make a mistake and it's sweet, and when it sounds nice, you do it twice. That's a great,
Yes.
a great way of thinking about it.
So he said when it's nice, you do it twice. And I always listen to that every time I hear Rebecca. I'm always fascinated how he took that motif. And like I said, it was an accident that he had.
And he elongated it.
But it was nice. Yes. And he would do so many different things with the same motif. So you never lost the motif. He would do different things with it. You never lost it.
Questions. Could you tell, as an adjudicator, the difference at any time, if any, in the arrangements of Clive Bradley for steel orchestras in New York for the Panorama and for what was done on the Trinidad Panorama pan scene, rather?
Well, I like to say you can't get away from the man. Artificial insurance that his stamp is always on his music. So you can't get away from the man. That's what I mean. There is something that will let it, something that will keep it away and make you realize this you're hearing badly. It is so like if you were here Kitchener. You know, there are so many things in Kitchener's music. I'm using the similarity to bring out the point.
Yeah, gotcha.
That if you listen, so if you hear one of Kitchener's tunes, and you can tell that was Kitchener. You know, there was something, again I say, you can't get away from the man. This style was always in the form. You couldn't get away from it. Right now I'm exhausted of the distance. No, when I say so, thinking of the work that he has done.
Yeah,
and how great, but it is mind-boggling.
Well, Mrs. Merle Albino DeCoteau, thank you very much for sharing your experiences in the earlier years and, of course, in the latter years with Clive Bradley, and putting a personal touch, if you will, on just one of the many instances of greatness in the life of, as he called him, the genius and the master musician, the late Clive Bradley. Thank you very much. As always, it's a pleasure to have you in When Steel Talks.
Thank you so very much.
When Steel Talks, everybody listens.